Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for the NBA schedule drop, which we are eagerly awaiting. The time is now 3:04 p.m. on Thursday, August 15th. I just scrolling the old Twitter app. It seems as if there are a couple of people that have already posted schedules of some other teams that have been released, but nothing for the Knicks yet, who are you know fashionably late as usual. But I always like this day. It's kind of cool. I mean, we already know who they're going to play, and we know how many times they're going to play them. But there is still something about seeing the format of the schedule that I always like, and just to kind of get a feel for, all right, we got a hard stretch early, we got this easy stretch late. This 6-week span right here is going to determine whether or not we are an X team or a Y team or whatever, and everything in between. It's just fun. It's something to do in the middle of the summer when NBA content is essentially over for all intents and purposes. And don't mind me, I'm just continuing to refresh my phone to see if I have missed anything, but nothing as of yet. So before the schedule actually gets released, I thought we would go through a couple of different things to look for. Again, like, the Knicks are going to do however they're going to do. Ultimately, what the schedule looks like does not matter. Or it doesn't matter too much. It matters, like, I don't know, 5, 10, whatever % of how they're ultimately going to do as a team. That said, I do think there are a couple of things to keep an eye on. So, in no particular order, when are they playing the Celtics, and how often are they going to play the Celtics over the first 2 months and change of the season? I had obviously Tim McMahon of the Hoop Collective and ESPN on yesterday, and he theorized, and he's not the first person to theorize this, that Kristaps Porzingis won't play a basketball game in the calendar year of our Lord 2024. So ideally, I think if the Knicks could play more games against the Celtics earlier in the season as opposed to later in the season, that would be a good thing. Next thing that I'm going to be looking for, let's stick with the East for the moment. I think there are, if I'm looking at, I'm not sure if there's any other, like, so I think there's going to be an incentive to tank this year because Cooper Flag is really, really good. And I think this draft, not that I know a whole lot about it, like, it's a top heavy draft. There's a solid, whatever it is, 3, 4, 5 prospects. So, everybody kind of tries in the beginning of the year, and then the trying starts to slowly fade as the year goes on. But I think even within that dynamic, there are going to be some teams that are going to be maybe more inclined to try or play all their guys earlier and less so as the year goes on. In the East, I'm looking at the Atlanta Hawks. Like, this is still a team with Trae Young. This is still a team with Jalen Johnson, who was coming on last year until he got injured. Like, they have Clint Capella until further notice, and obviously Okongwu was there. DeAndre Hunter. Like, they have NBA talent on the roster. Larry Nance Jr. is there. I would love to get my hands on him. But, like, they have a lot of NBA talent, and you could squint and look at that team and be like, okay, this is a decent basketball team. Like, they're certainly not the worst team in the league. That's a team I would imagine will do better in the earlier portion of the schedule, perhaps, than later. So that's one team to keep an eye on. And the big one I would say out west is, and I should also say, I should also note the one thing that maybe it does not go for my theory about Atlanta is their 2025 first round pick does go to the San Antonio Spurs. So maybe they're just not going to tank at all because they have no incentive to tank because they don't have a pick. I still think, like, that's a team that that maybe he's going to try to go out of the gate strong, and then if the season goes sideways, they're going to play like more of the younger players. So, but the big one is Utah out west. So Utah has a pick that they owe to Oklahoma City, is top 10 protected. They are obviously going to keep that pick. They're going to do everything in their power to keep that pick. That's a team that I would, again, much like last year, much like the year before that, watch out for early. So ideally, I think the Knicks would rather be playing the Utah Jazz later in the year than earlier in the year. And I don't know that there's any other West teams that fall into that category, because Portland's just going to be bad. And I could see San Antonio making a run for the playoff race the whole year. Same thing with Houston. And then you look up and down. The Clippers are an interesting one, because again, that's another team where the draft pick is encumbered. So, but whatever, they only play the Clippers twice. And who the hell knows when Kawhi is going to play or when Kawhi is going to be injured. So, probably not a big deal there. So, kind of just want to see like what it looks like. When are the big road trips? How many times do they play? Back-to-backs. When are the back-to-backs in context with each other? All right, so we have the opening week schedule. So we know already that the Knicks play the first game of the NBA season. They are in the Boston Garden. That's on Tuesday, October 22nd. 3 days later, they get 2 days off. They will have their home opener, and that, again, this was announced, I think, yesterday. They will host the Indiana Pacers. So, tough opening couple of games, playing the defending NBA champions, followed by the other Eastern Conference finalists from last year. Although I know Knicks fans are chomping at the bit for that date with the Indiana Pacers. Couple other games that we did get announced so far. Lakers visit New York on February 1st. And that is a primetime game. That's 8:30 on ABC. Another primetime game, Knicks Warriors. The arena in Boston. Thank you, Andrew, for that. You're never going to get it through my head. It's not going to happen. There we go. The schedule dropped. Okay, so let's just go to that. I'm going to stop filibustering. Oh, wait, no. Here we go. Okay, so the Knicks just dropped some video, which I'm not going to watch. Okay, here we go. So I can't see the whole thing yet because the Knicks haven't dropped the full picture of yet. But let's just go through. We'll go through the beginning of it and see what we got. So they start at Boston, then they host Indiana, get the weekend off, which is nice, and then host the Cleveland Cavaliers. So right out of the gate. Oh, here we go. Andrew, where is that? Where can I see that?
NBA.com.
Yeah, but okay, so if I go to so I'll go, here we go. Oh, I think I know. I have to just look at it on my desktop. There it is.
There you go.
See, this is why. No, but why is mine more spread out than yours?
I don't know.
You know what? Maybe drop the link in the.
That works.
In the thing, and I'll pull it up on here.
You got
it. So host the Cleveland Cavaliers, third game of the season, and then road trip to the Miami Heat. Jesus. Boston, Indiana, Cleveland, Miami, out of the gate. That's quite a way to open the season. And then a little bit of a reprieve. Although you do go on the road. So, okay, here we go. Let me get this. This is a better view. Okay. So, Boston, Indiana, Cleveland, Miami. Fun. Then after, and by the way, the Miami game is on the road, although we know it's really MSG South. And then stay on the road at Detroit, at Houston, at Atlanta. So this is what I mean. Like, right out of the gate, it's a 4-game road trip. 3 of those games are games that the Knicks are, quote-unquote, supposed to win. Obviously, you're supposed to win in Detroit, supposed to win in Houston, supposed to win in Atlanta. But, like, all those teams are going to be, trying their little tuckuses off right away. So it's like, okay, you better come prepared. No easing into anything. After that, it's a one game at home. One game at home against the Milwaukee Bucks of all teams, and then back on the road at Indiana, at Philadelphia. Well, that is, how many games is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is quite an opening 10 games, if I do say so myself. It's a little early to start making proclamations about what would be a good record in that span of time, especially since we don't know, is Mitchell Robinson going to be healthy? I mean, heck, at this point, we don't know, is Julius Randle going to be healthy? But just looking at that slate of games off the top of my head, 6-4 might not be the worst result in the world for those first 10. And I would certainly sign for 7-3, as Andrew puts in the chat, 10-0, of course. Andrew, are the Knicks, just so you can put yes or no in the chat, and I will relay your answer to the people watching. Would 82-0 be an acceptable record for you this year?
It's the expectation, John.
The expectation. I'm glad that we're starting off, nice and measured. Okay, so that's the first 10. Then, thank God, thank the good Lord, 4-game homestand. Bulls, Nets, Wizards. Okay. So if the Knicks do get off to a bit of a rocky start out of the gate, because again, that is a hellacious start to the season, you got 4 straight games against teams that you should whoop up at home. That said, 2 straight against the Nets at home. The Nets may be tanking harder than any team in the league this year. I would expect them to be tanking harder than any team in the league. Even teams that come out of the gate tanking like nobody's business, their players will try very hard right away. And it's always tough to beat teams 2 games in a row in a back-to-back situation. So that said, the Bulls, the Nets, and the Wizards. Okay. Then we got our first West Coast road trip, and the NBA, man. So at Phoenix, at Utah, don't love playing the Jazz that sucks. Playing the Jazz in Utah before freaking Thanksgiving. That's annoying. So at Phoenix, at Utah, at Denver, at Dallas. Oh boy. And then you make it through that, and then you get to come back east to go to Charlotte. A tricky game. 5th game of a 5-game road trip. Again, it's one of those games where you're like, oh, they'll beat the Hornets every time they play them this year because they're the Hornets and we're the Knicks. Tough to beat anybody on the 5th game of a 5-game road trip. That's a sneaky little FU in the Knicks schedule. Okay, let's keep it going. So then we got 4.
Hold on. The Hornets game, that's Black Friday, right?
I don't know. When is Thanksgiving this year?
Isn't that but it's the NBA Cup game. I thought that was
It's a noon game. That's all I see here is it's a noon game.
I'll confirm. Just keep going. I'll confirm.
Should I have said as a public service announcement at the top that I could not care less about the NBA Cup for the 2nd consecutive year?
No, you now said it in the middle, which is a perfectly fine time to say it. I'm just noting for scheduling that they're getting a noon start time the week of Thanksgiving potentially. And that is it. The day after Thanksgiving, they have a noon game in Charlotte, so that's not ideal.
It's the 5th game. It's the 5th game of a freaking 5-game road trip.
Yes, so for Thanksgiving this year, they're in Dallas on Wednesday. Then it's Thanksgiving. Then they're in Charlotte at noon. That's a brutal travel schedule.
Yeah, it's shitty. Then we got 4 straight at home again. So there's a lot of these sorts of teams in the league this year. I would say that there's you got, how many teams are not trying hard to win games this year? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish teams are not really trying hard to win games. 6, 7-ish teams can actually win the NBA championship, maybe more. But about half the league, more than half the league, is in that juicy middle, where the Knicks will go into these games and it's be like, all right, we're better than this team. Let's go get them. But these are also teams that on any given night could easily upend you if you're injured, if you're not playing well, all the other things that happen. And you got 2 right here. So come back home after that 5-game road trip. New Orleans and Orlando. Tough games. The Orlando game is one of the in-season tournament games, followed up by Charlotte and Detroit. Okay, so all things considered, that's not too bad. Then their last game before the NBA Cup semifinals, or quarterfinals, right? Because it goes to quarters and semis. Yeah, quarters and semis. Is at Toronto. Wasn't their last game before the quarters last year also against Toronto?
Correct.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay. So we'll see what Toronto is this year. Then there's the NBA Cup. So the NBA takes 10 days where we don't have the schedule out yet. Then, again, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the next 10 games are on the road. We got at Minnesota, hard. At New Orleans, hard. Come back home, Toronto, San Antonio on Christmas. Don't get much of a chance to enjoy Christmas. 2 days later, you're in Orlando. And then it's like, man, back-to-back at Washington. At Washington, at Washington. The 2 games before New Year's. I hate that. It's hard enough to beat 2 teams, the same team twice in a row. It's really hard to beat the same team twice in a row on the road. I don't care who they are. Now, end of December, you're already getting into the stretch of games where maybe Washington is starting to pull some chicanery with their roster. We'll see. Then you got Utah. So everything I said about Utah earlier about how you'd love to play the Jazz later in the year, that goes out the window because you have your second game against Utah on New Year's Day. And then back on the road at Oklahoma City, and then at Chicago. The OKC game, of course, is the Isaiah Hartenstein return game. And then I'm going to go through the next 5, and that'll be the first half of the schedule. So then we got 5 in a row at home. Orlando, Toronto, Oklahoma City, Milwaukee, Detroit. Okay. My instinct, seeing that first half of the schedule, not easy. We got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 road, 21 home. Andrew, just double check that math. So about even as far as road and home. But the layout of it is, for the reasons I went through, is tricky. It's tricky. What's a good record in that stretch? Are we talking about, I don't know, talk about 26 and 15? Talk about 27 and 14? 28 and 13? Now we're getting a little crazy. Again, not going through it with a fine-tooth comb. 26 and 15 after the first 41 games, to me, just, again, first glance, would be something I might consider signing up for. I'll just say that. Okay.
Hold on. Why do you say that like it's a bad thing? Like you're not, like, I know I'm joking with the 82-0 thing, but that's because a 52 in pace.
Because I think there is a not insignificant number of Knicks fans, maybe not people who watch this show, but I think there is a not insignificant number of Knicks fans who will look at the team last year and they will say, well, wait a minute. We won 50 games and we had OG Anunoby for however the fuck many games they had OG Anunoby for. 23 games. And they had Julius Randle for 47 games?
Yes.
Okay. And we have Mikal Bridges now. And you're telling me 26 and 15? So map that out over the course of a full season. That's 52 wins. So you're saying healthy Randle, healthy OG. We got Mikal. I know we lost Hartenstein, but we're getting an additional 2 wins? Again, this is me. I'll sign for 53 wins happily. 53, 54, something like that. I think there are Knicks fans out there whose expectations perhaps are a little bit higher.
I have them also winning more. I have the number much higher than 26 and 15 also. I think my shock is more for you to predict 26 and 15 is progress. So that's where Yeast being like, listen, I'll sign up now for 26 and 15. I think everybody watching is like, oh, he has us winning 50 games this year. Look at John.
No, listen, even me.
You sweated out a fake hasn't happened yet back to back with the Nets and Washington, John. Those teams are ass. We're going to win all 4 of those games.
So here's the thing. This was true last year. It's just as true this year. Every team that has championship aspirations, because the league is so deep with teams that are at the very least good, if not great, good. There are more than 20 teams in the league that are at the very least good teams. When you get your Washingtons and you get your New Jerseys, and you get your Detroits and you get your Portlands, they are almost like you have to win those games. And if you don't win those games, it's like, oh my God, it almost feels like it's 2 losses on the schedule. So to have those games be even that much more difficult, and I don't think you as a sports fan would disagree with the fact that it is always tougher to win 2 straight games against the same opponent, would you not?
Now it's on Thibodeau.
Okay. I hope you're right.
John, how many games did they lose like that last year? That wasn't like they were missing everybody.
I mean, we talked about it. They had the quote-unquote bad loss against Utah early, and they had the loss against San Antonio late, which Wemby went crazy. Those are the only. Did they have another bad loss?
If Houston is technically, because they were under 500 when it happened, but that was like a fluke play. Hartenstein got hurt. DiVincenzo got hurt,
and they should have lost the Detroit game. With the foul that wasn't called. So you're right. They and that is why you have Tom Thibodeau as a coach. You will go into these games. You're going to take everybody seriously. You're going to be prepared to play. I think this team is the glass half full version of Macri here. This team's going to wipe the floor with a lot of teams this year, including some good teams. They are built to look really good in the regular season. And I think they will. But, it doesn't matter how good you are. Everybody in the NBA has off nights. Everybody comes up against a hot shooting team. We always talk about this. The 3-point shot is the great equalizer. And I'm just like, if I had my druthers, would I want to play both games in Washington back to back? No, I wouldn't. I would rather space those out a little bit. But, that's all.
Okay. That's all.
Second half of the schedule. So this starts on Wednesday, January 15th. This is the 42nd game of the year. We are home heavy at the start of this, baby. So we got at Philadelphia, but then we're back home. Minnesota at home. Atlanta at home. Then on the road, big air quote energy, at Brooklyn. Then back home, Sacramento, Memphis, Denver, Lakers, Houston. And those are 2 straight national TV games. You got Denver is the ESPN game, Lakers are the ABC game. That's if I'm looking at a stretch where I'm like, that's an interesting stretch of games. It's those 5 games right there. All at home, Kings, Memphis, Denver, Lakers, Houston. Because to your point about Tom Thibodeau, Andrew, Tibbs teams tend to get stronger, not weaker, as the season goes along. And we've seen this play out several times since he's been Knicks coach, with the one exception of the year that we don't have to talk about, where they have picked up steam and they have, gotten better and better and better as the season has gone on. This is right around the portion of the schedule where we're headed into the All-Star break, where you would feel like hopefully they are really catching their stride. And yet that's a tough, again, Sacramento, Memphis, Denver, Lakers, Houston. That's a tough stretch of games. The one nice thing, you're sleeping in your own bed for 3 straight weeks, more or less, because you come back from Philly, they'll still travel home that night because they play at Philly. And so you're sleeping in your own bed from January 15th until you probably fly out the night of February 3rd. So that's a nice long stretch where the Knicks are going to be at home. Okay. After that home stretch, there are 4 games until the All-Star break at Toronto, Boston. So again, harkening back to what I was talking about before the schedule got released, I was saying, how many games can they get against Boston early on? It turns out 1. And the rest of their games against Boston are going to be late. So that sucks because you figure KP is going to be back for all but one of their games. We'll see if he could stay healthy. But anyway, at Toronto, Boston at home, at Indiana, and then the last game going into the All-Star break, Atlanta at home. Okay. And then so that's an interesting stretch. All-Star break, come out of the All-Star break, Chicago at home, and then, oh boy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out of 14 games on the road. Here we go. And just looking, this is the stretch that will define their season. I'm just going to read them off. At Cleveland, at Boston, Philly at home, at Memphis, at Miami, Golden State at home, at the Lakers, at the Clippers, at Sacramento, at Portland, at Golden State. So they play both of their Golden State games within more or less 2 weeks of each other. Miami at home, at San Antonio, and then closing that out at Charlotte. That is no picnic. That is so. Again, looking at the schedule in totality, they have that stretch before the All-Star break where they play a bunch of home games, and even actually, it's even more than that because if you go starting on January 6th, it's 5, 6, 7, counting the Brooklyn game, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 out of 14 essentially at home. You better clean up on those games because of what is coming for you after the All-Star break. I don't care how prepared you are. With a road schedule like that, it's no picnic. And then here's the home stretch. So this is now starting. We're going to game 70. So it's the last 13 games of the year. Okay, it's a mixed bag. Washington at home, you like that. Dallas at home, so you get the second matchup with the Mavs late. Clippers at home, we'll see what the Clippers are. At Milwaukee, Portland at home, Philly at home, at Cleveland, at Atlanta. Tricky little 2-game road trip. Phoenix at home, Boston at home again. So a lot of Boston towards the end of the year. And Boston might be playing for something. And then finishing up the last 4 days of the season at Detroit, Cleveland at home, at Brooklyn. So good news if you need a win or a couple of wins going into the playoffs to secure whether it's home court advantage, to secure home court, to secure the second seed, whatever. Having Detroit and Brooklyn be 2 of your last 3 games is nice. Also, it's nice to get Portland, to get Atlanta, and to get Washington all there in your last 13 games. So that's good. I think it's a tough schedule. Obviously, they're a very good team. And the reality of the situation was with how many good teams there are in the league this year, every team you could go through their schedule and do exactly what I just did, and the consensus is going to be that's a pretty hard schedule. Yeah, it's going to seem hard because of again how stacked the league is with really really solid teams. The one thing I forgot to do, well, silly me. Oh wait, no, well, okay. So I don't know if the team is going to be playing on my 10-year wedding anniversary, which I know everybody was waiting to hear because those are the NBA Cup. That's the NBA Cup stretch. So we'll have to wait. And then, of course, most importantly of all, the Knicks are not playing on my wife's birthday. Thank you, NBA. We appreciate you. We love you here in the Macri household. Thank you for that. Okay. And no New Year's Eve game, which I'm a very big fan of. I hate when the Knicks play on New Year's Eve. Just that's a personal pet peeve of mine. Okay. How are we feeling, Andrew? So, Andrew, it's going to be 78-4?
That's crazy. You're not going to lose 4 games. I think, look, you are who you are, and I don't disrespect. Well, I actually do appreciate the measured approach to call this a tough schedule, but we are the tough game on people's schedule now.
Oh,
so,
of course.
Right.
We
so
were the
no,
tough game
so
last year.
Right. So we don't have a tough schedule. Everybody has a tough schedule when they play us. I do agree that the 11 road games, 11 road games in 14 in the second half of the season looks brutal. That's like a brutal March. That's what like destroyed the Clippers last season. They had that really good middle 3 months.
Well,
and when I would
injuries.
when I talked to the Clippers pod, Clips and Dip, they were like, we play the most games out of any team in the NBA in the month of March, and that's what we're dreading is March. But I'm hoping our depth wins out, and that you talked about Boston having to play them late in the season. Maybe they won't have anything to play for. Hey, maybe we won't have anything to play for, John. That's my perspective.
So again, if I'm gonna do if I'm gonna do 3 big picture takeaways from the schedule in no particular order, a very tough opening to the season, very difficult first 10 games in terms of who they play and in terms of how much they are away from home. That's number 1. Number 2, they better clean up in the stretch of roughly 15 games from early January to early February.
So January 4th on, where the farthest they go is Philly for like 3
Where
weeks.
the farthest they go is Philly between January 6th and February 3rd. That's a 4-week stretch. Like, you better clean up because those are obviously all home games, even though other than Brooklyn and Detroit and maybe Atlanta, maybe Toronto, it's like those are tough games. And
for them.
Yeah, for them. And then like you said, 11 out of 14 on the road. And again, every team has a stretch like that where they play a ton of road games. You just got to hope the Knicks are healthy. And that's really it. That's all. I mean, that's the only thing. If the Knicks are healthy, like, I'm not worried. If I knew the Knicks were going to be fully healthy this year, I would have zero problem sitting here and being like, 55 wins. Let's go. I think this has nothing to do with the schedule. This just has to do with where they are at as a team right now. Because they're not top heavy, but like an injury to Mitch would be really tough, I think, for them at this point. And he happens to be their most injury prone player. That is the one thing. It's funny how that works out. That is the one thing that, like, everybody makes a big deal out of the backup center position. I don't care about the backup center position in as much as it is a backup center. I care more when that backup center, Precious Achiuwa, most likely, is going to be pushed into the starting 5. Not necessarily because I doubt that Precious Achiuwa could do a good job. I think he'd do a very good job, but it's because of the trickle-down effects. And that's why I thought, I think it was Mensa posed a question earlier today or yesterday about who would you start as the opening night center if Julius Randle can't go, or if Mitchell can't go. And he didn't include Sims as one of the answer choices. And I saw DJ responded to him and said, I think it might be Sims. I think it might be Sims too. Just to keep everything else in line. And like, I do not think he's going to open games, even if Mitchell Robinson is out with an injury. I do not think he's going to open games with the quote unquote death lineup.
I don't think that lineup is very much a keep in your back pocket for the playoffs. Like that lineup, I think, like your newsletter the other day about what their best death lineup is.
I'll go through. Yeah, sorry, finish what you're saying.
Well, just like I obviously have been on the front lines of like this thing could be awesome if he goes to it, and I just think, to your point about injury prone players, I'd love to see Anunoby guard a couple centers this season in the playoffs in like important games or for a primetime game, just to see what it looks like. If we ask him for a month to be your starting center or your closing center, I just, the wear and tear on him is just it's unrealistic. And that, I think, is that honestly, that more goes to your point. If you're looking at this as a tough schedule, now I don't for the life of me ever see Tom Thibodeau entertaining the conversation of load management in the Knicks locker room, but I did see last season 2 guys get put on minutes restrictions and him honor that. And I wonder if they start to think long-term about this season and like the back-to-backs. We didn't count how many back-to-backs there are. I think we could do that at a certain point, but do they get to a certain point in the standings that they're like, okay, we know we're good. We know what we are. Now let's not like punt games, but prioritize the playoffs at a certain point. I don't know.
Just to close the loop on the death lineup point, and for anybody who didn't read Monday's newsletter, somebody asked, what I thought the Knicks death lineup was, and I think there are a couple different possible answers, but the main takeaway, and I went back and I looked season by season at Golden State's death lineup, which started out with Harrison Barnes and then obviously morphed into a lineup with Kevin Durant. Steve Kerr never overused those lineups in the regular season. The most minutes the death lineup ever played was, I think, KD's maybe it was first or second year they played just over 200 regular season minutes, and teams play like 4,000 regular season minutes in total. So
you went deeper than I did, because I don't count the KD one, because that just became an unfair thing.
So the
like, first two, it's 347 the first year, and it was 3 and change. The point is, it was their 5th most used lineup the first season, and their
I don't even think it was that many
most used lineup the second season.
It
just, I mean, to be honest, any lineup with Steph Curry was great. So Kerr had a lot of options to go to, but the lineup that became the starting lineup in the finals that first year, that many people might opine for this year, it wasn't used as much, to your point.
Bringing it back to the Knicks, when he's not playing 82 games, when Mitchell Robinson misses time, it's going to be very interesting to see what the plan is there. Is it start Sims and then he gets the Keith Bogans treatment where he's playing first, 5-6 minutes of the game, and then it's a rotation of, Precious and like other guys. That's putting a lot for a team that is trying to win the championship this year, to think that like there will be starting lineups featuring Jericho Sims. That's a lot. Now, that said, Boston last year, I'm fairly certain that they started Luke Cornett a handful of times, right? Or maybe more than that. I don't know.
No, a handful of times.
Yeah.
They didn't play a game that mattered for 2 months, but,
Yeah. So, it might be much ado about nothing. Look, I am still of the mindset that the bare minimum with this team, you got to win over 50 games. And I think 53, 54, 55, 56, somewhere in that range feels right to me. To start talking about that they're going to hunt for 60 wins, like 60 freaking wins in the NBA. How many teams won 60 games last year? One. And it was, statistically speaking, one of the 10 to 15 greatest regular season teams based on several metrics that we've ever seen in the league. There's the one metric that I kept looking at, average margin of victory. I think they were the 5th greatest regular season team in the history of the league. And they only, again, big air quotes energy, but only won 64 games when teams that have that statistical profile throughout the course of the league are usually in the high 60s or more. So if the vaunted Celtics, who steamrolled over everybody in the playoffs, could only win 64 games, like the notion that 60 wins anybody should be shooting for 60 wins, including Boston this year. I give Oklahoma City an outside shot, but even them, we'll see. Here's the thing about Oklahoma City. I think the Knicks have the best top 8 in the NBA. Let's say that best top 8. Oklahoma City's top 12, 13 is stacked, so they could sustain an injury or two, and they'll be just fine because all of their guys could plug and play for any of the other guys. So I think they are particularly well suited to make it through the trials and tribulations of a regular season and win a ton of games. Everybody else, I put everybody else in the same category in terms of win total expectations for this year, where I don't think any other team, including Boston, because of the KP thing, should be shooting for much higher than 55, 56 wins.
So 2 things. One, I want to clean it up. The 2014, 15, I always get 14, 15, and 15, 16. The Warriors 2 years, the lineups that they use. I knew it was their 5th most used lineup in 2015, the Harrison Barnes death lineup. 222 possessions. So he barely used it, to your point.
Possessions. Yeah. It's like
I go possessions.
Minutes.
Yeah. It's barely used it. And a lot of it has to do with the fact they didn't discover it until David Lee got hurt. And then the next year, it was their 3rd most used lineup at 374, which is where I got 347. Point is, it was not their most used lineup. It was not their starting lineup. It was a lineup you went to like, all right, game over. Like we'll make this this 3-point game a 20-point game now.
And I won't. Well, sometimes that happened, but to again put a bow on this, I went through all the data. I'm not going to go through all the numbers right now, but there were a lot of. Let me rephrase that. It wasn't an automatic that if you compared the numbers to the various death lineups, that they were just blowing everybody else out of the water. To your point about the first season that they had the death lineup, you said it was their 5th most used lineup. The 4 lineups that they used more than that were all more effective if you go by net rating.
And all have a center is the thing. Well,
and all had a center.
No.
They all had a center.
If you go by net rating, it's still their best lineup. My point is that they all have Steph Curry.
Not on NBA.com's lineups.
I'm going clean the glass with possessions, but this is very much semantics. All 5 of their top 5 lineups had net ratings awesome. Plus 18. That's my point. Awesome. They were all awesome. The point I thought you were going to make is that lineup in the following season was outscored in the playoffs. It was a negative net rating. So while it was
barely,
quote unquote
by like 5 points,
but it's still not the death lineup anymore. Like it's no longer a lineup you go to because nobody can stop it. It's very much was stopped in the playoffs the following year. And then they got Kevin Durant and nobody stopped them for 2.5 seasons until God intervened and said, no, you can't have healthy players anymore. So that's one. Number 2, any optimism I had towards 60 wins would be that the bottom of the East is very bad. So if there's a chance to feast on the Cooper flag, the white flags at the bottom of the East, you can. Whereas the Western Conference just doesn't have that. And one of them happens to be in their division. So that would be my only thought there. I think
2 happen to be in their division. Toronto's.
You think they'll wave the white flag? I think they could be a sneaky playing team. So
I think, look, that's because there are 10 playing spots.
Right. I think it could be a sneaky playing team. Like I think it could take Chicago's spot.
Great. They could be a 33-win playing team.
I'm not saying that's good, John. I say it could be a play-in team. They're not going to wave the white flag is my point. They're not going to suddenly pull the Portland pivot.
How many total times did they play the Pistons, Wizards, Hornets, Raptors, Nets, Hawks, and Bulls? Is it about 20? It doesn't even matter what the number is. Let's say it's 20. You should go 18-2 in those games. If it's 25, you should go, 22-3 at worst. Like you should win essentially all of those games. And
which we saw them do last year with half a roster for half the season.
And this doesn't really help them out. The West, you don't get that benefit. So, like, on one hand, they're lucky to be in the East because they get all these teams, whereas in the West, it's only just Portland. But it's not like it matters because everybody else in the East gets the same benefit. So
I agree. I just, if you're looking at like the Knicks and maybe the top end of the East having a better shot at 60, the Knicks don't have the top heaviness of the Sixers with Embiid's injury history and Paul George's injury history. They don't have the Celtics where KP's probably not going to play until 2025.
What are do we have any super chats, by the way?
We have a couple. We'll get to them in a second.
Let's get to them because I can't stay on for that long. But I think I would look up what the odds are for the Knicks to finish with the best record in the league, because as much as I just blew smoke up Oklahoma City's ass, because the West is so brutal, and Oklahoma City, even with their depth, and even if they do stay healthy, which they largely did last year, just it's coming at you night after night after night after night after night. They could have an amazing season and still only win 57, 58 games, and then let alone if SGA or something ever got hurt. So I don't think it would be crazy to put down a few bucks on the Knicks to have the best record in the league, which I'm still, what would the odds? I'm guessing the odds are something like 12-1.
I will find that
15?
for you, courtesy of our friends at BetUS.
BetUS, there you go.
But that's good money if you can get those odds. That's for sure.
In the meantime, why don't we go to whatever super chats we got? Thank you, Andrew Claudio. I know you're not feeling well. Busy. Isn't October yet? How much time we got? We got about 2 months until about 10 weeks until the regular season opens. I'm excited. Only because I know what the grind is. I am going to enjoy every minute that I get until opening night. And then I will enjoy opening night and all the games that come after that. But yeah, we'll be there soon enough, Busy. Thank you. Next up. Hope you're having a good summer, by the way, Busy.
Speaking of Busy, I changed my hat for this. We have a bit of an announcement to make.
Oh, shit. Yeah, let's do that.
Busy, this is specifically for you. We'd like to give a shameless plug to the fine folks at T-Squared Social who are throwing Mets Fest on August 24th. It's an event they're having at their venue on 42nd Street, right around the corner from Grand Central.
We will be there.
We will both John and I will be there. It's $50 to go. I'm getting the information here. Okay, so your ticket includes a meet and greet with former Mets manager Terry Collins, Mets giveaways, trivia hosted by the Meet at the Apple podcast, the unlimited tailgate food buffet. So there's unlimited food throughout the night. It's the same night as the Jets and Giants preseason game. So if you want to watch that game, as well as the Mets Padres game that same night. So if you're a Mets fan, come to Mets Fest at T-Squared Social. It's $50 to sign up. The link will be in our bio here, as well as I'll put the bio in the chat. This is for any Mets fans, any Mets fans that didn't punt on the season because maybe an injury happened. Like, if you punted on the season, don't bother coming. But if you haven't yet and you still enjoy watching baseball and watching your baseball team, come to Mets Fest, and we'd be happy to see you. Both John and I will be there with our significant others. It'll be a fun time.
I have a babysitter. The last time Andrew mentioned free giveaways, the last time I was at T-Squared Social, I walked out with, I think, a Hennessy jacket, a hat from someone, and I don't think I paid for a drink because there were so many different companies there giving stuff away. So trust me, $50, all you could eat food. You meet Terry Collins. I'm pretty sure you're going to walk out feeling very good. I'll just leave it at that. Even if the Mets maybe don't hold up there under the bargain, which I'm sure they will.
Well, I was going to say, what you walked out of there with is Hennessy. So you were able to walk out of there feeling mighty fine, regardless of the score of whatever game we were there for.
There you go.
The Mets may require that. But again, $50. It's the link will be in our description. I'll put it in the chat now. Only Mets fans that haven't punted on the season yet. That you know who you are if that's you. All right, next up. Oh, speaking of
Kevin Danishevsky. Yo, GMAC, any thoughts on Begley's report on the injuries? To me, it's a nothing burger. seems speculatory on Randall and too early on Mitch. Did you read more into it than that? Look, the most important thing is that Jalen Brunson seems fine. That's the most important thing. Randall, I'm a little worried because we saw what he looked like when he wasn't fully healthy to start last season. That said, I think they are better equipped to insulate any speed bumps with him at the start of this year, I would hope. The Mitch part, it was a little concerning. I would love to hear that Mitch is doing more at this point. Again, because they don't. Isaiah Hartenstein's gone. Isaiah Hartenstein is playing in Oklahoma City. And by the way, I saw some Twitter account tweet out earlier. Are we booing Oklahoma City or are we booing Isaiah Hartenstein? Let me say this. Not since Patrick Ewing have I felt even the slightest desire to go to Madison Square Garden for a player's return game after they have left the franchise. I am really thinking seriously about making my way to Madison Square Garden for the night that Oklahoma City comes, just so I could give Isaiah Hartenstein a standing ovation at the start of that game, because that dude means as much to me and should mean as much to any Knicks fan as anybody who's come through the franchise over the last 25, or so years. So I don't want to hear any nonsense about booing him. So yeah, I'm a little concerned about Mitch. Long story short. Thanks, Kev. Frank Miranda. What's up, Mac? It's your boy Frank from Patreon. This has to be the most anticipated season in a long time. Let's sit back as a KFS family, pop gummies. That's a you thing, Frank. That's a you thing. In unison and truly enjoy a team with championship aspirations. Yeah, I'm gonna enjoy. It's funny you put it like that. It's so funny you put it like that, because I think, I don't know if I'm going to put myself into this category, but I think for a lot of fans, the higher the expectations are, the harder it is to enjoy, because all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, we've lost 3 games in a row. The sky is falling. I think that, again, it's everything's relative. I would like to think that we have enough communal knowledge to know that this team is going to be very good, is going, again, provided decent health, is going to be a bear in the playoffs, and it's going to be a fun playoff run where either they win or they go down fighting. And yet I know how it's going to go. I know, like, the first 2 who am I kidding? Forget 2-game losing streak. Like, the first time they lose a game, there's going to be people jumping from the rafters. Now, that's not indicative of how most people act and how we should be acting, but I do think it's interesting how you put it. Is it the most? It's the most anticipated season for me since I ever, because I wasn't really. I was just starting my fandom in 1983. Like, I wasn't really a fan in 92, 93. So I would say 93, 94, but I can't even say that. So for me, this is the most anticipated season of my lifetime. I'll say that. Thanks, Frank. Juanon, what's going on, Juanon? Need a prediction, Jon and GMAC. At what point during this season does the complete Fire Tibbs super chat meltdown come? There's at least one every year. Why should 2025 be any different? Hashtag Fire Tibbs. Juanon, it could be opening night. It could be opening night. Like, not the whole meltdown, but, like, here's the thing about this, and I already know this is what the case is going to be. Because the team is stacked and because we're talking championship, literally any game they lose, there will be people who will say, it might not be Tibbs, it might be trade Randall. It might be they were crazy to give up all that they gave up for Mikal Bridges. It might be something else. It's going to be this is going to be an exercise in extremes. So I can't make a specific prediction. I will say before the end of the year.
I think that's accurate. The quality and talent of the team means you have to go to the not to say Tibbs is easily replaced, but a head coach is usually the most easily replaced thing on a team ready to contend, whether it's right or wrong, right? So I would say at some point it'll happen. I personally think they're going to be really good, so it won't realistically be the meltdown you're talking about, Juanon. So I'll say playoffs. If they get once they get eliminated, the questions will be out. Will be because of the head coach, and yeah, it's not a bad thing to be making it all the way to the playoffs and then evaluating like that. Which I think, in my opinion, it will be. He's part of the reason they got there. So
I would go so far as to say, other than, maybe they're the 3 seed and like Boston's the 2 or something like that, and they like push Boston to 7 games in the second round, and it's very close, and like Boston goes on to win another championship. I would say almost any scenario in which they do not make the conference finals this year, there will be questions about Tibbs. And I'm not even going to add the caveat of pending health, because if they get bumped by a lot of injuries this year, guess what?
It's going to be,
people are going to be like, well, why does this keep happening to us?
With him,
Who's the head coach, So, yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the evaluation.
Yep. Kevin Danishevsky, only JMAC would freak out about two away games versus Washington. Listen, I respect every opponent. Every team in the league has talent. Even the Nets. Even the Nets have some talent. Dennis Schroeder, first team all Olympic, whatever the hell it was. He's still a net, I think, as of last time I checked. Thanks, Kev. Kev Words, what's going on, Kev? John, I appreciate your even-keeled approach to the schedule analysis. That said, Knicks 60 burger. Have they won? How many times in their history have they won 60 games? Is it twice or 3 times? I know they won 60 in 92, 93. I'm going to look it up right now. I know they won 60 at least once. Okay, I have it up right here. Twice. Yeah, 69, 70, and 92, 93. Okay. That's it. So this would be the third time in 78 years. Maybe. Could happen. Knicks Fan Patrol, what's going on? Can't wait to see what this season tapeworm moment is. It was not tapeworm. It was ringworm. Very big difference. Very, very big difference. You don't want ringworm. You really don't want a tapeworm, from what I know about it. Listen, knocking on wood, really hope this season does not have any such moment that involves something crawling out of the asshole of one of my children.
All we do know for certain, Knicks Fan Patrol, is whatever the moment is, he's going to tell us about it.
I mean, I wouldn't be me if I didn't. Jessica, what's going on, Jessica? Hashtag 63 wins. Oh, I love the energy. I love it. If anyone could do it, it's this team. I mean that. If anyone could do it, if it's Tom Thibodeau is that much of a psychopath, that he would. Here's the one. Here, let's say this: if they're like on some crazy pace, and they could like take their foot off the gas like late in the season because they have like the first seed locked up or whatever, you think he's not going to go for the most wins possible? Come on. Crazier things have happened. Thank you, Jessica. Hope your summer's been well. Knicks Fan Patrol. As a New York Knicks and Red Sox fan, I remember Johnny Damon's first time back at Fenway after he went Yank. Fans threw money on the field. That's what Isaiah deserves? Oh, my God. I hope he's not serious.
If you are serious, Knicks Fan Patrol, I'll push back on this. Isaiah,
Knicks Fan Patrol, if maybe not the Nets. I was about to say, if there was another team that gave me the equivalent of Isaiah Hartenstein dollars to go write about them and podcast about them and do whatever the fuck about them, you would see me take that money so fast. Oh, my God.
You remember this joke from my wedding day, right? Like my buddy's joking around that I'm a highest bidder guy. Like, if all of a sudden Twins Fan TV showed up,
Oh my God.
know Andrew Claudio is very well compensated. Like, if suddenly John tomorrow was hosting Thunder Film School,
It doesn't
you'd
even have to be
know.
basketball. A
Yeah.
rugby team.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Anaheim
No.
Ducks Film School hosted by Jonathan Macri.
Oh
I
my
hate to
God.
tell you this. This is the way.
Anaheim's a nice little town.
Yes, it is. Fine, we could pick like middle of nowheresville. Okay.
Okay.
This is the reality of it, Knicks Fan Patrol. And I'm with you that Hartenstein deserves. He worked his ass off for the Knicks. He played his ass off.
Standing ovation.
Standing ovation when he comes back.
Standing ovation. Keith P. Peckerman says we get 65 wins if we got Mo Bamba. Who's Peckerman? Should I know who that is?
Yes, but wait, should we?
I have no idea who this is. I hope it's a bit, whoever it is that said that.
Peckerman. Keith P, put in the chat who Peckerman is, because I don't know. And Knicks Fan Patrol is in the chat, the live chat. I'm still just hurt the way they took Caveman and cut his hair, so he's mad about Johnny Damon. That's more the L that you're more sad about. I respect it. Watching a lifelong Red Sox that helped break the curse go to the Yankees would hurt me too. Keith P, put in the chat before we wrap up who Peckerman is, because I don't know who. I thought it was the election prognosticator that has the keys that Yash keeps talking about, but that's Lichtman. Who's Peckerman?
I mean, I hope for his sake it's not his real name.
Touche.
We got anything else?
This is the last one, so if you can get it to me before we sign off.
All right, I'll filibuster for a sec. Don't forget next Saturday. So what? 9 days from right now. Come out to T Squared Social for Mets Fest. It's gonna be a really fun time. Like I said, I'll be there. My lovely wife will be there. Andrew, his lovely wife, will be there. We're all gonna have a good time.
And tickets, it's $50. The link to sign up is pinned in our description.
There you
if
go.
You want to sign up and get your tickets ASAP. Limited supply available, so
Get them now.
Get them now. Get them ASAP.
And this was great. I'm guessing this is the last live stream we do before we get to camp. If I had to put money on it, I would say yes.
Oh, Peckerman. Okay, it's Keith P. And we joked that what does the P stand for? And we said Peckerman. Like jokes from last season. Yeah. So when we see Keith P, it's Peckerman. It might be what his real name is too, but the Peckerman is predicting 65 wins. I dig it.
Is Mo Bamba on a team?
I think so.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. Okay. I got to get out of here. This was great. Hope everybody enjoyed this. Again, it's the schedule. It's silly, but we have fun with it, and I hope you had fun with it too. Thank you, Andrew Claudio, for toughing out what I know was a tough one for you because you were a little under the weather, but go rest up. I will see y'all soon with a very special episode. I think we are going to be dropping it on Tuesday. I believe that is the next time you will see something coming from this feed, but it is going to be a good one. I will just say that. And that's all for me. Everybody enjoy what's left of your week, and we will talk to you soon. Peace out.